I buried something in the backyard at 18. Now, it's ruining my life. The email came at 3:12 a.m. Your childhood home has been listed for sale. Price dropped $40,000. Current owner eager to sell. Click for photos. Daniel stared at the screen longer than he should have. Not because of the price, not because of the photos, but because of that goddamn backyard. The backyard. That place where 20 years ago he dug a hole at midnight with trembling hands, dirt-stained jeans, and a heart pounding so hard it almost drowned out the sound of her crying. That night, he buried something he told himself he'd forget. And mostly, he did. Until now. Rachel stirred beside him. Another insomnia email? She mumbled. Daniel quickly locked his phone. Yeah, junk. He kissed her on the shoulder, whispered, "Go back to sleep," and got out of bed. His legs carried him to the window like a machine on autopilot. He stared out into the dark sky, but what he really saw was that old backyard. 18 years old, shovel, flashlight, sweat, fear, and Lena. God, Lena. That night, she'd shown up out of nowhere, eyes red, sleeves torn. Said someone had been following her. Said she didn't feel safe. Said she did something stupid. She didn't tell him what. She just gave him the backpack, begged him to bury it, said she couldn't explain. Not yet. He did it without asking questions. That's what love looked like to a boy back then. Action before doubt. The next day, she was gone. Not just gone like moved away. Gone like disappeared. No note, no phone call, no goodbye. Gone. Now here it was. That house. For sale. Which meant people would walk the yard. Step across the soft patch of ground he once swore he'd never return to. What if someone found it? What if someone already had? The next morning, Daniel stood in front of the bathroom mirror, toothbrush in one hand, phone in the other. He zoomed in on a photo from the listing. The backyard, behind the tool shed. Nothing looked disturbed, but that didn't mean it was safe. He checked the real estate info again. Open house this Saturday. Public welcome. His heart dropped. Rachel walked in, tying her rope. "You okay? You look pale." Daniel forced a chuckle. "Just thinking about driving down to Crest Hill. Remember the house I grew up in? It's on the market." "Oh," she said, "for old time's sake?" He smiled weakly. "Yeah, something like that." He told her he'd be gone just for the weekend. He told her it was just to look. He told himself it was just to be sure. But the truth was, he needed to dig it up before someone else did. Before 20 years of silence finally started screaming. Daniel returned to Crest Hill on a gloomy Saturday morning. The sky was overcast. The air was damp and heavy, as if something was about to burst. The road leading into town was still familiar. The same old gas station, the rows of drooping pine trees along the sidewalk, and the sign that read, "Crest Hill, a peaceful place to call home," with paint peeling off in patches, just like every year. Only Daniel wasn't the same. He stopped the car in front of his old house. Faded paint, replaced windows, a broken section of the fence, but it was still the place, the one that held his childhood, endless summer days, and the biggest secret of his life. A woman with a name tag that read Rebecca, agent, waved from the doorway. "Hi there, here to see the house?" Daniel nodded, masking his unease. "Yeah, I used to live here." "Oh, that's lovely. Then you're really going to like the kitchen updates. The last owner did a remodel just a few years ago." She kept talking, inviting him to look through the rooms. Daniel only nodded, glancing around out of politeness. Every step brought him back to memories, where Lena used to giggle on the staircase, where they'd secretly hold hands behind the sofa when his parents were asleep. But that's not why he came back. He came for the patch of ground behind the tool shed. When no one was watching, Daniel quietly slipped around back. He froze in place. Right there, where he had once dug a hole and buried the backpack deep into the soil, now stood a patch of ground, exposed and uneven, clearly disturbed. No grass grew. The dirt was darker, as if freshly dug and hastily covered. A chill crept up his spine. His knees nearly buckled. It was gone. The backpack had vanished. Daniel turned quickly, as if afraid someone was watching him from the trees. No one. Just a breeze stirring the door of the old shed, creaking faintly on its hinges, a sound Daniel still remembered from when he was 13. Who had dug it up? The previous owner? A landscape? Or someone who knew? His heart pounded as he stepped back, struggling to keep his breathing steady. Then his phone vibrated. A message from an unknown number, no name saved. "You came back? Good, I'm waiting." Daniel went numb. He didn't reply, just stared at the message. His grip on the phone tightened until his knuckles turned white. No name, no clear threat. Just, "I'm waiting." Waiting for what? That evening, he rented a small motel room near the lake. The same lake where he, Lena, and Eli used to light fireworks during their final summer before graduation. The room was worn out, smelled of damp wood and old bedding, but he didn't care. He opened his laptop and searched for old news articles about Lena's disappearance. Nothing new. Still the same familiar headline: 18-year-old girl mysteriously disappears. Police find no leads. Below was the same portrait he could never forget. Brown eyes that held something soft and sad. He sat there in silence for hours until darkness swallowed the room. Only one question remained in his mind. If the backpack was gone, then who has it? And why send the message the very day he came back? Daniel didn't sleep. He sat all night in the old motel room beside a cold cup of coffee and the glaring light of his laptop screen. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Lena, soaked in the rain, trembling as she handed him the backpack, but her face kept shifting. Sometimes she was 18. Sometimes she was the little girl sitting behind him on a bicycle in 9th grade. Memories tangled and overlapped, twisted like a thread with no beginning and no end. He wasn't even sure if he remembered things correctly anymore. The next morning, Daniel drove to a place he never thought he'd return to. Lena's mother's house. It was still the same small house at the end of Magnolia Street. Lace curtains, dry flower pots, the faint chime of wind bells hanging from the porch. He stood at the door for a long while before knocking. The door opened. An old woman, thin and frail, her hair almost entirely white, looked at him with clouded eyes. "I'm Daniel," he said, voice dry. "I used to be Lena's friend." She didn't respond at first. She just stared at him. Then, not angrily, not kindly, she said something that froze him in place. "You came back to kill someone again?" Daniel stood motionless. I don't understand." She said nothing more, just quietly closed the door. The old wooden door creaked softly, then silence. Daniel sat in his car for nearly an hour, his eyes fixed on the steering wheel, his mind spinning. Why did she say that? Was it just confusion? Or did she know something? He opened his phone and reread the old message. "You came back. Good. I'm waiting. No name, no follow-up, just that." A thought crept in, cold and sharp. Someone was still watching him, either from 20 years ago or from very, very close. On the way back, Daniel stopped at a convenience store for coffee. As he stepped out of the car, a voice called from behind. "Daniel?" He turned. It was Eli. Eli was wearing his police uniform, holding a cup of takeaway coffee. Still tall and lean, with close-cropped hair and a clean-shaven face, his eyes held a flicker of surprise, but nothing cold, nothing threatening. "Long time no see," Eli said, offering a faint smile. "Yeah," Daniel replied. "Almost 20 years." They shook hands awkwardly, like two friends who had once known everything about each other and now barely knew where to begin. "Heard you're back in town," Eli asked. "Yeah, just passing through," Daniel said. "Saw my old house was for sale. Thought I'd take a look." Eli nodded. "Funny thing," he said. "Someone recently dug up the backyard." Daniel froze. Inside, not visibly. "Dug?" he asked casually. "Yeah, the previous owner noticed the soil was disturbed, thought it was an animal. But to me, it looked more like someone had done it." Eli gave a small laugh. "Probably just bored teenagers or treasure hunters." Daniel smiled faintly. "Yeah, could be." They chatted a little more about the town, the high school, the burger place they used to go to. Nothing strange, except for one thing. Eli never once mentioned Lena, not even once. But then again, who would want to bring up a ghost? That night, Daniel went through an old stack of notebooks he kept in his suitcase. In a worn, leather-bound journal, he found a few unfinished entries. Messy handwriting, faded ink. One line made his skin crawl. That night, Lena didn't explain anything. She just stood there, shaking, holding the backpack. She said, "I need you to help me. Don't ask anything, please." I asked her, but she only shook her head, her eyes like she was carrying a corpse no one was allowed to see. The next page was torn out. Daniel stared. He didn't remember writing that, or maybe he had chosen to forget. Then a memory broke through. Lena standing by the lake, holding the backpack, blood on her hand, whispering, "I can't let anyone find it, and I can't let Eli know I have it." Daniel shot up. It wasn't Lena's backpack, it was Brian's. Daniel sat in his car, one hand resting on the steering wheel, but his mind was somewhere else, lost deep in the past. Brian. That name felt like a stone at the bottom of a lake, now suddenly surfacing cold and heavy. Brian, Eli's younger brother, 12 years old, died from drowning in Crest Lake the same summer Lena disappeared. The police ruled it an accident at the time. No one questioned it. Brian was known to sneak off to the lake alone, and in a town this quiet, everything was always assumed to be nothing serious. But now, the backpack Daniel buried was Brian's, and Lena was the one carrying it that night. The next morning, Daniel returned to the lake. The water was still. Sunlight filtered through a thin veil of mist, casting everything in a soft, blurry light. He sat on the old wooden bench by the shore, silent. A hazy memory drifted back like an old film reel. Lena, standing just a few steps away, clutching the backpack to her chest. She didn't say much, only one sentence. "Please, Daniel, I can't keep it, and I can't throw it away either." "You shouldn't have come back." The voice came from behind, soft but sharp enough to make Daniel jump to his feet. A young woman stood a few meters away. Her gaze was direct, though not hostile. Her hair was tied back. She held a small notebook in her hand. Daniel froze. "You're Judy," she said, "Lena's younger sister." Daniel hadn't seen Judy since Lena's disappearance. Back then, she had been just a shy 12-year-old girl, always hiding behind her mother. Now she was a grown woman, calm, firm, and with something sharp behind the quiet in her eyes. He took a step back. "You were the one who sent me that message?" Judy didn't answer right away. Instead, she pulled out a worn notebook from her coat. "This belonged to Brian. I found it recently while helping clean out an old storage room at the elementary school. His name is on it, and the handwriting, it's his." Daniel opened the notebook. The first few pages were filled with drawings of superheroes and robots. But midway through, something shifted. A man sitting on a chair holding a beer can. His face had no eyes. Next to him, a girl with long hair, curled up, head on her knees, crying. The room around them was dark. Only a single bulb cast light onto the floor. In the corner of the sketch, a door stood slightly open, and on the final page, a drawing of a black backpack placed in the middle of the street. Underneath it, in faint, clumsy pencil strokes, was a sentence, "I saw it, but grown-ups don't want me to." Daniel looked up. "You think Lena did something to Brian?" Judy shook her head. "I don't know, but one thing I do know, my sister was not a monster. She may have made mistakes, but she wasn't the kind of person who would just let a child drown." Daniel was silent. His hands tightened around the notebook. "So you think I know something?" Judy met his eyes, unblinking. "No. I think you were the last person to see Lena alive, and I think you buried something you've never dared to dig back up." Silence stretched between them. Daniel stared out at the lake. "It was Brian's backpack," he said quietly. "I didn't know why Lena had it. I didn't ask. She just asked me to bury it, so I did. Not to hide anything, but because I loved her." Judy pressed her lips together. She didn't cry, but her voice lowered. "And have you ever asked yourself why people disappear?" Daniel looked up. Judy reached into her coat again and pulled out a faded photograph. 4 people stood in the frame. Lena standing next to Brian. To the left was Eli, and to the right was Daniel himself. Judy pointed at Eli. "The night before Brian died, Eli came to our house. He was drunk, arguing with Lena. I overheard them through the door." Then she said slowly, "Maybe the person who killed my sister wasn't some stranger. Maybe it was someone in this photo." The photo slipped from his fingers. Daniel bent down to pick it up, but his hands were shaking so badly it kept flipping over on the concrete floor. Judy had already left. She didn't leave another word. She didn't need to. Her voice still echoed in his mind, slicing through already torn memories like a blade. Maybe the person who killed my sister is someone in that photo. Daniel drove around town for hours that afternoon. No destination, just to keep his mind from sinking completely into silence. But silence always finds a way in. Always. He pulled over near the old gas station, killed the engine, stared into the rearview mirror. The face staring back at him was tired, hollow, eyes sunken, shadows under them like bruises. He barely recognized himself. That night, back at the motel, Daniel laid out everything he'd brought: photos, faded news clippings, Brian's sketchbook, and silence. The loudest thing in the room was the space where the truth used to be. A memory crept back. Lena, standing in Eli's yard, dusk falling. A yellow light from the house casting shadows on her face. She was clutching the backpack, her clothes wrinkled, her face scratched. Eli stood inside, his back to the door. Daniel just stood there behind the fence. He saw everything, but didn't move, didn't ask, didn't interfere. And the next morning, Lena was gone. Daniel dropped to the floor, hands pulling at his hair. He no longer knew if he was the boy who loved Lena or the coward who watched her fall apart and did nothing. The next morning, 8 a.m., his phone rang. Unknown number, but the voice, familiar. "You up?" "I'm by the gas station, 200 meters from your motel." Eli. Daniel found him leaning against a patrol car, hands in pockets, face unreadably calm. "Long time no coffee, huh?" Eli smiled. "Take a walk?" There was no choice. Daniel nodded. They walked down the lakeside path. Mist still hovered over the water. Birds chirped in the trees. The peace was unbearable. Eli broke the silence first. "Judy came to you, didn't she?" Daniel didn't answer. Eli scoffed. "She always thought her sister was some kind of saint. But you and I both know Lena wasn't perfect." Daniel turned to him. "Do you know what happened?" Eli shrugged. "I know what I saw, what I heard. I loved her too. You think you were the only one?" Daniel stopped walking. "What's that supposed to mean?" Eli stopped too, face to face now. "I don't know what happened to Brian. I didn't lay a hand on Lena. But I know this. We all left her alone that night. And if someone did kill her, it didn't take a knife. Just walking away was enough." Daniel said nothing. In that moment, he wasn't sure if he hated Eli, Lena, or himself. Back in the motel, Daniel didn't turn on the light. The room was dim, lit only by slivers of sunlight leaking through the curtain. He sat on the edge of the bed, arms hanging, eyes fixed on the dark space ahead. There was nothing left to dig through. No backpack, no evidence, no message from Lena, just himself. And the questions he'd lived with for 20 years, pretending they didn't exist. What if I'd run to her that night? What if I'd asked what happened? What if I hadn't buried something I didn't even dare to look at? A sharp pressure gripped his chest. Not the kind of pain that breaks bones, the kind that steals breath, that makes you forget how to sit, how to move, what to do. Except finally, let it come out. Daniel lowered his head into his hands. His shoulders began to shake. No sound, no tears, just everything in him collapsing from within. Because for the first time, he couldn't hide behind the words, "I didn't know." Because he did know. He always had. In those three, one of them killed my sister. Judy's words kept echoing in Daniel's mind. It was no longer a memory, no longer just grief. It had become a duty. That evening, Daniel went to find Eli, pretended it was a casual meetup. They sat at a quiet roadside bar on the edge of town, the same place the three of them used to hang out back in high school. Eli hadn't changed much, just a little heavier, a little slower. Eyes clouded, like someone who'd been running from something for too long. Daniel raised his glass, smiled. "Remember that lake? You and I almost fought there over Lena." Eli chuckled dryly, downed the glass. Daniel poured him another, voice calm, casual. "I still remember the last time I saw her. I went to the lake, but she wasn't there. You weren't home either." Eli shifted slightly, drank again. Daniel leaned in. "Someone said they saw you by the woods that night." Eli froze, just for a second. Daniel didn't blink, didn't retreat. "Did you see her that night?" Silence. Then Eli slowly put down the glass. His voice cracked. I just wanted to stop her. She wanted to tell about what I did after I stole my dad's beers. She kept crying, kept saying Brian died because of her, and she couldn't keep lying. I begged her, got on my knees, but she wouldn't listen. Said if she had to keep this secret forever, she'd rather die. Eli's voice trembled. His eyes turned glassy. I grabbed her arm. She pulled away, and I pushed too hard. Her head hit a rock. I didn't mean to. I panicked. I didn't want everything to fall apart. I didn't want to lose everything. I dug up Brian's backpack, the one you buried, because I was scared the past would come out. Daniel didn't speak. He had been recording the entire conversation. The next morning, he handed the audio file to the police. 3 days later, Eli was arrested. That evening, local news played the confession of a man who had run for 20 years. "I raped her while drunk. Brian died after she pulled him. He hit his head and fell into the lake. And I killed her when she tried to do the right thing." No one had expected it, not from the boy next door, not from one of the 3 inseparables of Crest Hill. One drowned, one buried beneath the trees, one behind bars, and one left behind to carry what none of them could. Daniel returned to the lake. He sat beneath the old tree where they had once lit fireworks and promised they'd never grow apart. The wind was gentle, the lake still like glass. He picked up 3 small stones and placed them by the shore, one for Brian, one for Lena, one for the part of Eli that no longer existed. He closed his eyes. "I'm sorry for not seeing the truth sooner. I'm sorry, Lena, for not believing you." Final message. Some tragedies don't strike in a single night. They form slowly. Through each moment, we stay silent when we know something is wrong. Through each time, we protect secrets instead of protecting people. And one day, there's no choice left but to live and carry all of it.